Hello, everybody. We're with LindaAnn LoSchiavo, and we have a special treat for you tonight, but I'm going to let her tell you all about it.
Good evening, everyone. On the night of devilry, this is Walpurgis Nacht. And how did I get centered on Walpurgis Nacht? Well, I went to Angela's godfather. She's the winner of the Bram Stoker Awards. And Bram Stoker led me right into devilry and revelry. So I'm going to start with the quote that inspired me. It's from Dracula's Guest by our godfather, Bram Stoker. And for anyone who hasn't read Dracula's Guest recently, an Englishman is on his way to Dracula's castle. And right now he's in Munich. It's a beautiful night. It's April 30th. And the weather is gorgeous. And he tells his coachman, I think instead of driving, I'll go out and take a walk. And the coachman is very alarmed. And he says, this is April 30th. And he says, well, yes, the weather is beautiful. And the coachman said, no, you must not walk outside. And he says, why not? In England, I would be taking a long walk. Now, he has no map, no cell phone, no GPS, but he's ready to walk. He's English. And the coachman says this was Walpurgis night. Walpurgis night was when, according to the belief of millions of people, the devil was abroad, when the graves were opened and the dead came forth and walked, when all evil things of earth and air and water held revel. And that walked me right into a poem called On Walpurgis Night. And here it is. This is echo verse. If anybody hasn't heard the echo verse, the last word of a line rhymes with the first word of the next line. And this is on Walpurgis Night. Is there a whisper in the air tonight? Moonlight's bones crooning with sly silvered tongues. Among the graves are herbs hand-tied, rue, sage, leafage strange, inconsistent with the date. Late April's odd for blooms bright as bloodshed. Ahead crowd roses, scandalously red, fed by tombstones, stone food of the dead. Deathbeds surrounding me begin to shake. Stakes hammered into certain graves release, defeat their purpose to prevent a corpse force as a vampire. Somehow these undead, bred on blood, rise, lips an unearthly red. Dread spreads through me. Last thing I recall.
I love that. I have chills, LindaAnn. Chills.
Thank you so much, Angela. So that's where we are. It's after nightfall, right? Evil is afoot, and we're here.
That makes us happy, feeling very comfortable in this.
Feeling very comfortable in this. So if anyone wants to know, how did this start? What happened before Walpurgis Night, and why is it called Walpurgis Night? Okay. So there were pagans, rustics, druids, the Celtic people. And just like us, they like to have food, they like to eat. So springtime meant fertility rituals, embracing the earth. Belenus was the sun god, and that's why it's called Beltane on May 1st. And they were doing their traditional practices, lighting fires, setting offerings, a lot of fertility rituals. I'd like to know more about that. We'll discuss that some other time, perhaps. And all of a sudden came the big, heavy boots of Christianity. And this British nun, who was born in Devonshire, instead of staying in England where she belonged, she went to Germany to spread Christianity. And consequently, all of the practices that were accepted and going on many hundreds of years before she was born, all of a sudden became evil, superstitious, and Christianity can naturally suppress not only indigenous culture, but the thing that it loves to suppress is women. It loves to leave women uneducated, disenfranchised, having no rights. So I thought at this moment when women's reproductive rights are constantly in the news, we're just back there. We're just back there being deprived of everything. And she became canonized. And they knew to muddy up the dates. So they made her canonization May 1st, which was Beltane, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're always crossing over to somebody else's calendar, borrowing somebody else's calendar,
Yeah.
along with their freedoms, right?
Yeah.
So
well, there's already a celebration there. Just
yes,
go ahead and borrow it.
Right? Go and borrow it. And people take saints and call them the patron saint. Like Saint Nicholas is the patron saint of children, and that's why gifts are given in December on his day. And she was the patron saint of witchcraft, and people started praying to her to avoid witchcraft. Well, I know that you're going to ask me what happened to Walpurga when she died. And this is straight out of Something for Horror Writers Association. Her tomb started to ooze a healing ointment, and that was considered miraculous. So they chopped up her corpse and sent it all over France and Germany so they could spread her holiness. Great, right?
Yeah, that's what I want is a piece of angry saint to ward off, I don't know, cure my bunions.
Cure your bunions. So that's more cowbell, right?
I'm sorry?
That's lots more cowbell.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a gruesome story indeed. Like, that would make a very good, you could base a lot of material off that story in all kinds of ways.
Right. So here we're learning about this thanks to Bram Stoker, who brought me in the gate, right?
Yeah.
So this is a poem inspired by Christianity's cruelty to women. And this really happened. This is a nonfiction poem, and it's called Huldah the Westchester Witch. And she was in the area of Washington Irving's Sleepy Hollow legends. She was right there. And she was trained as a doctor in Germany. So by the time she gets to New York, she's not like everybody else. She's probably plain looking. She's not living with a husband. And like most women of the time, they were herbalists. You didn't go to a doctor, you went to the local herbalist for cures. But people were very suspicious of her, and they didn't realize she was a doctor, and they thought she was a witch. And this is the poem. Huldah the healer, well known far and wide, resided in the cottage by Spook Rock, mistrusted by her neighbors who denied her remedies cured illnesses. They mocked all foreigners whose accents or lifestyles were different. Unmarried, fearless, plain, Bohemia trained, Huldah was reviled, called witch, despite good deeds which were disdained, arcane procedures thought to be witchcraft. During combat with British soldiers, she was slain. Townspeople, hearing she had passed, retrieved her corpse, conveyed her home, agreed to bury Huldah decently. Surprised were they, discovering a Bible there with medical books. She had been baptized. A sage deserved respect. For years they erred. Famed authors seasoned stories with her spice, attracting tourists to her tomb, enticed to learn about this worthy, once despised. Her ghost protects townsfolk from poltergeist, observing from Spook Rock on moonless nights. So here's a case where they had a golden goose in their midst and just disrespected her, didn't take her herbal remedies, and felt, witchcraft. and this is all because of St. Walpurga and the Christians making people xenophobic, suspicious of their neighbors, and so forth.
Yeah.
Did you have a witch poem or a spell poem or a hex
I
poem?
do. I can read one. My
Yeah.
comment on that is just, isn't that the way we are though? As people, a lot of times, you know, you have something good in your midst, but you're afraid of it. You don't trust it, and then you destroy it. And then after is when we find out what we've lost.
Mm. And how did she die? She died by cannon fire when she was protecting the militia over
Yeah.
the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
A heroine to the end.
Yeah. Despised all that time though.
Despised,
Yeah.
reviled. Yeah.
Well, I am happy that we have the freedom to be ourselves a little bit more now. Hopefully. Yes. I do have a poem. It is one that I actually used as a spell because poetry began in Japan as haiku. Basically, it was lined verses uttered from the gods, and it was 575 syllables. And this isn't a haiku. This is a haiban, but it ends in a haiku. And so when I needed to do something, I wrote it in a spell because spells and poetry and incantations are a lot the same. So this is what I used, and I'll say it worked. And I called it transactional transmutation, or the snake was never the bad guy. In this wax I bind you, as the flame claims the wick, so the ties that link us turn to ash. You gave me the silver ring, a snake ring, a sning. I loved the portmanteau. I didn't speak in symbols then. I didn't think of treachery and deceit. I didn't remember the snake in the garden, the serpent as the devil, the viper in the pit. I was on a path to nowhere, aiming for a short trip out. A driver's license, a gun license, a license to wed, meant as much as the diploma I didn't get and the papers that certified my head wrong. Unbound by reality, I believed what I wanted to. I wanted to believe in you. I was damaged goods, the kind of girl you give a snake ring to. But now I'm the kind of girl that throws this ring into a foreign river with waters that flow backwards beneath stars hanging upside down. I speak in tongues, and I see your snake as a red herring, a diversion, a false path. I renamed this ring Habu, she who protects her nest and brings balance with bite. A new beginning. I shed you like an old skin. Yesterday's scales, you fall from my eyes. You cannot tread upon Habu. You will not direct Habu. Habu obeys Habu. As the flame claims the wick, so the ties that link us turn to smoke, rising with the fresh wind. I bind you in this wax. You are now expelled. Begone from me and my kin. You are not welcome. Thank you. Habu is a snake in Okinawa.
Like a skin. Is he?
Yeah, but I'm very interested to hear more about. I don't think I even said it right. I used to say Walpurgis, but it's actually pronounced Walpurgis.
Yeah, the Germans give it the V.
Yeah,
Walpurgis Nacht, but Walpurgis Night is good. Yeah, it's good. The whole thing about Christianity. I mean, I was raised Roman Catholic, but if you're truly a Catholic, in my opinion, if you're a true Christian, you offer charity to others and understanding and opportunities and bread when they're hungry. You don't just try to deprive them of all of their personal rights. So we're right back in Hulda's time and Sleepy Hollow. Yike. I had another quote from Jacob Grimm, which is so wonderful that I wanted to read, because he's inspiring too. This is the half of the Brothers Grimm, half of the folklore team. There is a mountain very high and bare, where on it is said witches hold their dance on Walpurgis Nacht, Jacob Grimm. And I wrote a poem based on that called Night on Bald Mountain. I sent you the video. I don't know, but I know you've been busy.
I saw that video. I love that.
Yeah. So that was another influence. Since everybody's talking about the Black Sabbath and the Black Mass that witches are supposed to be enacting, I wrote a poem. I've never participated in a Black Mass. I've had a sheltered life here in Greenwich Village, but this is what I think goes on Bald Mountain, on these rites. Under a waning gibbous moon, late June on St. John's Eve, unholy rituals take place as night jars fall to their black feasts. Old anchorites leave leafy caves, carved canes from cypress knees, observing their hunchback shadows distorting the infernal shapes 12 devotees created. Pentagrams appeared in the cemetery midway between new monuments and older stones. Robed figures holding torches silently walk widdershins, their circular footpaths becoming 3 concentric circles marked by powder that's combustible. And now these rings of fire leap up, light the night, mysteriously, as the supplicants position offerings inside the star. Some tombs quake open, skeletons emerge. The hermit's canes donated to the blaze refuel it. Beings formed from molecules are welcomed as the spirits of misrule. Nude revelers hail newborn deities. Take that, Saint Walpurgis.
Oh, wow, I love that. You write so beautifully, but with such dark power. It's always such a pleasure to listen to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Angela. That's a high compliment from you.
Oh, you definitely earn it.
So I was going to talk about the persecution of witches can be seen as an act of extermination meant to eradicate female knowledge, and Christian men using the Bible to keep women silent, submissive. And here we are, upholding the right to speak, write, and oppose a nothingness by writing dark poetry. Here we are. And writers can make a difference, right? And do you have a poem that you want to read about witches or tombs or...
I can. I almost hate to follow up to your poetry, but I will take a stab at it. It's not as dramatic and deep. I have Maiden Matron Crone. I actually just feel like listening to you. I can read this, but then I just really want to just listen to your poetry.
Okay.
Because it does feel... I'm going to read this, and then the people listening will say, yeah, that is a lot paler than what LindaAnn is giving us.
Oh, Angela.
So this is when I wrote about being a woman, about maiden, matron, crone, and how we each stage in our life it has value and it has a beauty all in its own.
Yes.
And so this is the poem I wrote for that. And this is just a free form. Maiden, matron, crone, a waxing crescent, my moment is the maiden. Time flows like honey, endless and golden. The veil is an ornament reserved for dancing. I know you see me. I shine bright in the moonlight, a star among stars. The moon is pregnant. My moment is the matron. Time is a paused breath before I give life. I push the veil to one side to make room to nest. I'm not watching you. My gaze is fixed on the young I live to protect. A waning crescent. My moment is the crone. Time slows and grows pale, but against the mist my eyes can pierce through the veil. I am far from blind. I can see through you. The thin moonlight tugs at me. My ancestors call. The moon has gone dark. My moment is passing on. Time is no longer, it is limitless. The veil shrouds me, preparing my eyes for dawn. I will be renewed, rising with a fresh new moon, and it begins again. So you see what I mean? Like you have so much.
That's what this night is about. That's what this night is about. The 3 phases. The crone, the wise woman. This was the figure that had been revered by our ancestors. And what does the Catholic Church do? They make the wise woman, the crone, the enemy of the church. That's what it's all about. That's so perfect, your poem. Perfect. That's exactly what it's about. This banishment of women who know things. They don't want us to know anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's I think there's a difference between spirituality and religion. And religion very easily turns toxic and does claim power. But I think like everybody's a victim. It teaches the boys to act like that. It takes the power, and only a few can have that power. And it
Only a
usually
few.
isn't the higher power in that case.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I wanted to move now to how some famous male writers wound up making things worse for women. I'm just going to clear my throat. I brought this first to my critique group in SFPA as I was cogitating this 3-part poem. It's called The Secrets of the Spell. And if you are a theater person, you know that actors will never say the name Macbeth. It's considered unlucky. So they'll call it the Bard's play, the Scottish play. And this poem is about why there is a hex on Macbeth. And his is the most famous poem with witches, right? The 3 witches that start, here we are, double, double, boil in trouble, and so forth. They've become iconic. But what people don't realize is that Henry VIII had passed the first Anti-Witchcraft Act. And Elizabethan dramatists, not just Shakespeare, many of them, were putting witches in the play for novelty. What was this doing? This was increasing the persecution of women who were being named by their neighbors as witches. Now, usually this was jealousy. It was a land grab. These people were totally innocent. They were not witches. They weren't hexing crops, or anything. But this play was famous and influential. And this is why there's a hex on Macbeth. It's called Secrets of the Spell. This is the longest poem I will read tonight. It's in 3 parts. Wasted breath. Spite stirred in guts like poison mixed in cake. Insistent maleness and disparity assembled heated breath, enough to hex a British play. Heed this or rue the day. Old Scottish combat zones, intent on war's mythology and trophies, replicate themselves wherever men fish for acclaim to get their stories splashed across the stars in letters, law, or laboratories. When males engage with chemicals, rank brines, intent on alchemy, employing fire, wrapped by discoveries perhaps benign, they're being scientific, praised. They'll bask in backlit glows that manly fame bestows. The patriarchy does its best to hoard awards like weapons needed for attacks. When females huddle over cauldron smoke, ancestral recipes astir once more, wrapped by solutions stronger than strychnine, which sheriff thought, girls having fun outdoors? Suspicious scribes malign spell-casting crones, implying they're doing devil's work. The patriarchy does its best to warn, forbid, discourage daughters, sisters, wives, by commandeering the rights to accolades. Distrust of women's power led to laws. In 1542, King Henry VIII signed Britain's first Witchcraft Act. Hundreds died, even if those accused denied the charge. This is part 2, Macbeth. Elizabethan dramatists, all men, put witches in the plot for novelty. Meanwhile, witch hunts harass the innocent. Misogynies increase deserved byplay. Real sorceresses jinxed the Scottish play. Their hex comeuppance, bloodshed was repaid. Macbeth depicts a pagan coven, though their wisdom's minimized by childish speech like double, double, toil and trouble, rhymes for children to infantilize this spell. with eye of newt, toe of frog, thespians portraying the weird sisters cursed the Thane of Quarter who rebelled against his king. Macbeth's debut was struck, streaked with bad luck. This is the third part, the last part. Met death. Before scene 5, the bard went backstage, found his lady Macbeth mystifyingly dead, unnerving King James in his royal box. Which elements affected Brits the most? Stage sorcery incited constant fear. His majesty intensified with trials. Mark my words, women have always fought back, preserved infernal mysteries, bewitched. Dark invocations learned by stealth live on. Macbeth's unholy spell won't be withdrawn till every witch's unfair death is mourned. And that is Secrets of the Spell, explaining why the curse still lives on today. Actors won't name it. And speaking of King James and his royal box, he wrote 24 volumes on demonology, the Catholic king.
Jeez. Someone
Amazing,
had a
right?
little time on their hands.
Imagine that. How did you spend your kingdom, King James? Well, I was writing another volume on demonology and all this evil people have to avoid.
Yep. So he literally was the guy in the tinfoil hat in his basement, but as a king.
He was, but as a king. But as a king.
That's scary.
Yeah. Do you have another spell poem to follow this up?
I do.
Yeah.
This one is this is actually on a news story that I recently read about Harvard had a book made from a woman's human skin, but it used to be a joke. Like they would like haze each other with it, like go get that book, and then the new student would get it unsuspectingly, and they would tell him it's covered in human skin. And so recently Harvard started thinking about this as a person, and the skin was stolen from her. She was a patient of a doctor, and after she hopefully died, he took her skin. And so now they are, I think, taking the skin off the book and then like giving it a proper burial or however they're going to do it. But when I read it, I thought to myself, because the point is she didn't give consent, but I would love to be turned into a book, honestly, because to me, that would be the greatest honor. So I can't speak for her, but I would love to be a special book. Wow. So that's what this poem is about, is I understand the need for consent, but yes, from me.
Yeah. Wow. Let's hear it.
It is called Consent Matters, or a new line item for my will. I can't speak for her, she whose skin was used as a textile, a decorative commodity to hold fancy folios, a victim of oh boy, I hate that word. I should have practiced that one. Anthropodermic by bibliopeggy. Always write the words that you can actually pronounce if you can read them. I wonder if she knew it all. Did the good Dr. Bouland casually ask permissions, or did he smooth his hand across her back comfortingly, gauging her elasticity, texture, and hue? No, I can't speak for her, but I can speak for myself. Would I offend? Dare I ask to be bound, not in marriage or in law, but in book? My heart replaced with pages, my veins rewritten with inky words. Keep me from the grave and bury me in a pile instead, a tower of tomes, my final place of restlessness. No fiery pyre for me, unless by biblioclasm, and then only by my ghost may haunt the gaslighters. The best parts of my life have been filled with words. I wouldn't mind remaining so after death. But no, I can't speak for her, just myself. To become a book, would she have given her consent? I would be honored. So a little bit witchy, but and seriously, I would love to be turned into a book after I pass away of natural causes.
Yes, after you pass away of natural causes, and you get to pick the title.
Yeah, yes. That would be. I immediately went to grimoire. Like, what an amazing grimoire to be. But then you have to think, which of my kids would like that? Probably not.
Or they'd fight over it. Next
Yeah,
thing
well,
they're
I do.
fighting
Yeah,
over it.
I can think of one of my kids that would probably be interested.
Okay. 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 And I was thinking, my book is forthcoming, right? Always Haunted.
Yes, I'm so. Speaking
Halloween
of
poems.
books,
Yes, and speaking of books, and I wanted to give Halloween a social justice twist. So there are it's 24 poems, a lot of illustrations by Erin Caldwell inside. And there are crimes that were committed on Halloween, some quite brutal, some quite mysterious. I actually started writing crime poems years ago, believe it or not, for unsolved murders to try to spread awareness. This is before the days of DNA. So I've been writing poetry quite a while. And I can't say that my poems have ever reopened a cold case. However, since I started writing those poems, some of the cases have been resolved. But there's one case in the book. There's one case in the book. Wait, hold on. What is it? Oh, okay. I'm being told I'm not looking at the camera. Okay. Good to have somebody here to correct you. There's one particular poem that is an unsolved murder in the book. It was committed in 1981, and that's in Always Haunted. But this is a poem about Hetty Green, the Witch of Wall Street. And have you heard of her? Does her
I
name?
have.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know all the details of her story, but I do think of her as a heroine. She was quite the woman.
Yeah, she was quite the woman. She died when she was 81 in 1916, and her estate was valued at about $100 million. And all the capitalists and the wealthy men of that era were very spiteful towards her, always trying to demean her and diminish her accomplishments. She wasn't a person who had inherited money or married a wealthy husband and so forth. She was quite miserly, and that also helped. But she was also a philanthropist. She gave to many, many, many good causes, depriving herself in order to give money. And still, the books that come out are negative towards her and still keep her nickname, the Witch of Wall Street. So this is my sonnet, my Petrarchan sonnet called Hetty Green, the Witch of Wall Street. Since Hetty Green amassed a fortune, Witch became her nickname, mocking her acclaim. Wall Street's successes counted men, not dames. Her black coat tinted over dresses, stitched to last, avoiding a willful beauty, which retained more income. Hetty saw no shame in practicality nor thrift, maintained her stringent lifestyle, growing very rich. Her ghost embraced the witch identity, began to hex male enemies. What fun to exercise her powers, cause the crash of 1929, wreak misery, observe as ill-gotten gains came undone. It's said that her last breath was used to laugh. And that was my penultimate poem on the Witch of Wall Street, giving her witch powers after she's dead and saying that she caused the crash of Wall Street.
Yeah, I love that. Because also, who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? That's fair game. Fair game for somebody who was maligned all her life and insulted and disrespected.
Out of jealousy and anger and threat, but there was no threat.
There was no threat. There was no threat. She was just doing her business and not bothering any darn person. The last poem I wrote is called Welcome Beltane, and it's only 3 lines as a closing poem. But let's hear from you. I know you wrote a closing poem, or you have a closing poem.
I could. I don't mind. I'm reading Welcome Beltane, and I also have your video The Night on Bald Mountain. So
Oh,
we could
yes, yes.
actually, yeah, if you want, I can play
Ooh,
that at the
yeah.
very end when we're done, and we'll just let that end us.
Oh, that would
Because,
be great. Yeah.
yeah, it's it needs to be seen. I'll just say
Oh,
that.
beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. But I guess never ask a poet, do you want to read? I guess, right?
Oh, please, please.
Okay, I will. I can read. Yuta is kind of like a Okinawan witch, but it's more of a shaman. So I'll read Kamidari, which is the voice, the God voice that you hear that tells you the things that you should know and how you should do things and what to lay out and what to, basically how to cast magic. So I was born like this. No, now I know it wasn't you. It was always me. And Kamadari, the blinding headache, splitting, fragmenting my head, the voices calling my name when no one was home, playing at seance, with beads, stones, and blocks, having awake dreams of things that really came true. Now I clearly see the difficult child I was, and now we all know medication and counseling and frustration could never fix this. Kamadari, the curse of the kami, a touch of madness, a thread of the veil clinging to some babies as they pass from that world to this, like a kiss of moonlight at midnight, chasing dark and shadows away. Just open the blinds and illuminate the room. No one can blame you. And that is more my plea to say, it's okay. Like, don't be afraid of things that we don't understand. Don't be afraid of women that rule Wall Street, because whether they're not a witch or not, have some kind of instinct that we don't understand. Just let everybody be and
Just let
accept that.
everybody be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just let everybody be. And I wrote a 3-line poem to close our session. Welcome, Beltane, to put us back with the druids and the ancients and the pagans whose spirits are still remembered today. Warlocks of winter now dead, woody herbs blossom, summer's spell spreads north.
I love it. That is the perfect poem to end on, Linda.
Thank you so much. And thanks for hosting me.
Absolutely. I always love hosting you. I just really love to sit here and listen to your poetry, which I guess is why I'm like, I don't want to follow that.
You're too kind to me always. You're too kind to me, and I thank you.
Well, thank you for celebrating this holiday with me. It's actually becoming winter here in Brazil, which I find very interesting because I've often wondered then what happens to our holidays that we've always celebrated. Like spring is now, it's all flipped. So, but I like it. I'm just learning a whole nother way to look at everything. So,
Are you still putting up your Halloween tree?
no, I left that, and they don't have Christmas trees here that I could find. Well, they do, but they're very small, definitely not black. So, and we're still moving around while we get our visas settled. So, but actually this year I want to hold a Halloween party because it's not a big holiday here. And so they like it. They understand the idea of it, but there's not a lot of actual experience. So we're going to have the whole apple bobbing traditional Halloween party.
Yeah, wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful. And maybe somebody from the horror writers will have an online Halloween party, and we can be in costume reading a poem. That would be
that
great.
would be fun. I think that could happen. I think you might be talking to that person that could happen. That sounds like fun.
You know I'm in. You know I'm in, girlfriend.
Yeah, okay, that's already on the plans then. That's happening.
Thank you so much for everything.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm going to close us out on your poem, which is the video of your reading on Bald Mountain.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Good night then.
Good night. And I'm going to take us down.
Night on Bald Mountain. St. John's Eve, June 23rd. By LindaAnn LoSchiavo. Under a waning gibbous moon, late June, on St. John's Eve, unholy rituals take place as nightjars fall to their black feasts. Old anchorites leave leafy caves, carve canes from cypress knees, observing their hunchbacked shadows, distorting the infernal shapes 12 devotees created. Pentagrams appeared in the cemetery, midway between new monuments and older stones. Robed figures holding torches silently walk widdershins, their circular footpaths becoming 3 concentric circles marked by powder that's combustible. And now, these rings of fire leap up, light the night. Mysteriously, as the supplicants position offerings inside the star, some tombs quake open. Skeletons emerge. The hermit's canes, donated to the blaze, refuel it. Beings formed from molecules are welcomed as the spirits of misrule. Nude revelers hail newborn deities.